Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Caitlin, and I read! Finally! So these are all of the books I read in February and March. I read 6 books, so I'm happy about that. The first book I read was Dreadful by Caitlin. This is a cozy fantasy about a man who wakes up in an evil wizard's lair with no memories of how he got there or who he is. And then he finds out that he is the evil wizard. It's a really fun premise. I don't have too much to say about this. It was cute. It was funny. I think it was a good debut from this author. I don't really like how it ended, but I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. But I thought it was a fun read, and I gave it 3 stars. Next, I listened to Scythe and Sparrow on audiobook. This is the 3rd and final installment in the Ruinous Love trilogy. Because it's the last book in a series, I can't say too much without spoiling it, but it was my least favorite out of the 3. I did not like Rose, the female main character. I thought she was annoying. There wasn't enough murder in this book. I know that's a weird critique to have of a novel, but this is a series about serial killers that fall in love, so it is apt. This is also just a critique of Bryn Weaver's writing in general, but I don't like the way she writes, as the kids call it, spice. I understand that it's a dark romance and the characters are perturbed or whatever, but that one scene with the cotton candy, you're gonna get a UTI. 2.75 stars. The next book I read was Babel by R.F. Kuang. I don't have my physical copy anymore because I sold it. I have a lot of thoughts on this book. I think R.F. Kuang attempted a lot of different things at the same time, and unfortunately wasn't successful with any of them. I think if this book was just historical fiction, I would have liked it more, but I don't think it worked as a fantasy. I found it just to be lazy writing. There was no world building because it was just set in 1830s England. The only difference, or the only element of magic, is the introduction of silver working. Silver is their currency, and it's imprinted with magical words by translators. And that's an interesting concept, but it's not explained very well. So 1, I found it kind of confusing, and 2, I found it really boring, because that's the only element of magic. That's it. Just silver. I definitely think there was not enough editing. The book was almost 600 pages and really nothing happens. I think it really could have been condensed to like 350 and it would have told the same story. I read a lot of the negative reviews on Goodreads, and 2 grievances that were common in all of them were: 1, everyone hated the footnotes, and 2, people felt like R.F. Kuang was talking down to the reader, as if she thought they weren't intelligent enough to understand that colonialism is bad on their own. I didn't think the footnotes were necessary. At some point, there was a footnote that said astrology isn't real. Like, come on. I personally didn't feel like R.F. Kuang was talking down to the reader. I do think that the story lacked nuance. It was heavy-handed with reminding the reader that, hey, colonialism is bad, and I don't think she needed to hold her hand through that. I wouldn't account that to her having a superior sense of intelligence. I would just chalk that up to poor writing skills, or maybe not enough editing. Something I think is interesting is if R.F. Kuang didn't have 2 master's degrees, and if she wasn't getting her PhD at Yale, would people still feel like she was talking down to them? Or what if she wasn't a young woman? What if she was a 50-year-old man? Would people still feel that way? So this is just food for thought, but I'm wondering if people might be projecting their own insecurities about not being well educated, or as well educated as a young, successful woman. And maybe that's why they feel like, oh, she's talking down to me. She thinks she's better than me because X, Y, and Z. But all in all, I did not really enjoy this book. I gave it 2 stars. All right, Things We Hide from the Light. This is the sequel to Things We Left Behind. This freaking book. I almost DNF'd this. I was so close. I was on page 400, but I was in too deep. I had to finish it. So this is marketed as a good guy, bad girl romance. Is the good guy in the room with us? This follows Nash Morgan, the brother of Knox Morgan from the first book. And I don't know if he got a lobotomy in between books 1 and 2, because this ain't him. He was rude, argumentative. His only personality traits were convincing people that he's not like other cops and accusing women of lying to him. And then Lena, who is supposed to be a bad girl, is just a commitment phobe. So, I don't know, is she a bad girl just because she doesn't want to settle down? If you read the first book, you read this book. It's the exact same formula, but worse. Also, she talks about how absolutely ripe and juicy Nash's badonkadonk is in every single chapter. Like, okay, girl, we get it. He's caked up. Can I get character development, please? 2 stars. Next, I read Liquid by Miriam Ramani. This is a new release. So this book follows an unnamed narrator. She just received her PhD. She is a queer Muslim woman. She broke. And so her best friend Adam jokingly suggests she just marry rich. But she takes it a little too seriously. She makes a spreadsheet and she decides to go on 100 dates over the summer. I thought that was going to be the whole premise of the book. But that's just the first half of the novel. The second half of the novel is spent entirely in Tehran. And it's more of a coming-of-age family story. So it's kind of a jarring shift. I think you'll either like the first half more or the second half more, but you probably won't enjoy both. This is a debut novel. I really liked Ramani's writing style. I found it really lyrical. I did enjoy the first half more than the second half. I ended up giving this, I think, 3.5 stars. I'm giving this to my friend Asia on Wednesday, and I tabbed all of the haram scenes so she doesn't have to read them. And the last book I read was The House Guest by Amparo de Villa. It's translated from the Spanish by Audrey Harris and Matthew Gleason. So this is a collection of very, very short stories. I would consider them to be literary horror, gothic horror. None of them are scary. They're just a bit creepy. I would say the stories are hit or miss for me. There were a few stories in here I really liked. Moses and Gaspar, Tina Reyes, The Breakfast, End of a Struggle. Those ones I like quite a bit. But the others, either I found them boring or I thought they were just too short. They ended right when it piqued my interest. And I'm sure that was the author's point. I'm sure that's what she was going for. I just feel like it's really hard to accomplish a lot in such a short amount of space, if that makes sense. So I don't have too much to say about it because, you know, neither did she. So yeah, that's everything I read. It was successful in the fact that I read everything I was going to say I was going to read and some. It was unsuccessful in the fact that I didn't give anything higher than a 3.5. So I didn't really read anything that good. I'm hoping next month will be better. I'm reading Middlemarch right now, and I'm on page 100. It's a behemoth of a book, so I'll probably end up finishing this maybe mid-April. I don't know. I'm enjoying it so far, though. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.